What's up, guys? Welcome to the 8th and final episode of Pickup Sports Talk's NFL Around the League series. We dressed up today because it's the best division in football. We're excited to talk about it. Yes, we're sad the series is winding down. We just hope you guys gain some insights on it. Going forward, we're still going to have a big video explaining the playoff picture. We're going to have a fantasy episode, and we're going to have a regular episode coming up in just a few days. So, happy Monday. Brandon, let's dive right in.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking, if it wasn't a secret, just based on the past 7 days, the AFC West today. Spencer and I's opinion, probably the most fun division in football.
By far.
So much is up in the air. A lot of new look teams. I think we just dive right in if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
You guys already know the deal. Let's start with the Denver Broncos here.
Yeah, so this is a fun team. All of these are fun teams to talk about, so I'm not even going to repeat that again. And what I do want to say before we get into this is every single over-under was tough to pick. And honestly, if the divisions were different, if there were no divisions, I'd have all four of these teams in the playoffs simple. But as you guys have seen over the course of the last few days, I already have the Colts, or I have the 3 division winners, plus I have the Cincinnati Bengals, the wild card. So only 3 of these 4 can make it. And they do need to win more than 9 games to make it this year because Miami will get some wins. I do think Pittsburgh will be good. So I think teams need to get probably 10 wins to make it. So that's the magic number. And speaking of starting with Denver, Russell Wilson, they picked up this offseason. That's really the biggest word. That's why their expectations are so high. Because they weren't necessarily great last year, but Russell Wilson just brings with him an expectation to win wherever he goes.
Caliber.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Denver, basically since Peyton left, has been a kind of team that falls under the narrative of they're a quarterback away.
Yeah.
Well, now they have their guy. They have Russell Wilson. That's a Super Bowl winner. That's a perennial Pro Bowler. It's an all-pro level quarterback. It's a guy who every year is the MVP front runner till week 5. Now it's their time to really prove to everyone that they have belonged in the conversation of great team, bad quarterback for the past few years because now that they're looking to change the narrative.
And I think Wilson will be better than he was last year, but I don't necessarily think he'll have one of his best seasons, and it's because, honestly, his weapons aren't really improved. Like, everyone's expecting him to be so much better than last year because he's on a new team, a team that really wants to win, but I really don't know. I think I'm low on their weapons. I'll just leave it at that. A lot of people love Courtland Sutton, and I honestly think Courtland Sutton's going to have a solid year. He's the one I like the most, even though he's coming off injury, but Jerry Jeudy didn't show me that much. I know he's still young, and he was so good at Bama. KJ Hamler, I thought was going to be better out of Penn State. Yep. New tight end coming in. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. I think he's going to be a good backup for fantasy. Their O-line isn't great, but I do think Javonte Williams will have a good year. Yep. Not necessarily for fantasy, though. I know I keep talking about that. It's just in my mind a lot. Because I think Melvin Gordon will take some carries. So I think he does have some weapons. I think the run game will be solid. But really the word I'm going to keep using for this team is solid. I think there's going to be a good all-around team. Nothing I think is going to be phenomenal, but I think they're going to play mistakeless football. And that's really the culture I hope Nathaniel Hackett brings there as the new head coach.
Yeah, I think Russell Wilson's going to hold them to a very high standard, especially based on how his time in Seattle ended. I mean, he was having problems with Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
They really weren't helping him with the O-line.
Not
I do think that the O-line in Denver is improved. I think that's at least a baseline. I compare the weapons nicely to Seattle. I think they're similar. Obviously, peak Seattle, like the teams that he was winning with, the weapons were significantly better with Seattle than they are currently.
Not at the peak. I mean,
peak
Doug
Seattle's
Baldwin was always their star. I thought he was never that great.
I mean, yeah, but I'm saying that when Russell Wilson was winning, won the Super Bowl, their weapons were better.
I mean, Curse, Baldwin. I don't think so, but I think what I said about his weapons at least were 2 years ago when they were a playoff team and they had DK Metcalf in his breakout year and Tyler Lockett playing amazingly. Those weapons were better than now. But I actually think you're really wrong. I think when Russell Wilson was at his peak, he was showing that he could be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL without great weapons. So I think that's something to fall back on. I just don't think he's that same Russell Wilson of 2015.
Yeah. My biggest issue with this Denver team is just how they're going to all gel together. I mean, Russell Wilson's a big locker room guy. He always likes having a good connection with his teammates around him. I think that he'll bring that into Denver. My biggest thing is how he connects. I feel like not enough people are talking about whether, a lot of people are just assuming he'll adjust nicely. You never really know. It's a new team, new coach. But
I think it's good that Nathaniel Hackett's going to be a new head coach there, and I think he's coming from a similar system in Green Bay, so I think that's actually a good fit instead of him coming in to, Vic Fangio's been there for 4 years, so I think it's good that everyone's learning the new system together.
I just think they've completely, clean-slated everything other than, obviously, their weapons and defense.
I think that's a good move. And let's talk about their defense. Once again, solid. I like their linebacking core. I love Randy Gregory. That's a good addition this year. And Bradley Chubb's one of my favorite players in the NFL. So I was not happy when he went down last year. Plus, on top of it, their young secondary behind Pat Surtain, who didn't play much last year, but he showed that he can be a Pro Bowler.
For sure.
In addition to Ronald Darby, Justin Simmons is insane.
Amazing.
So I think that defense is going to be good, and especially playing in Denver. And that's what I want to talk about. I'm going to kind of get to their record prediction here. When I was looking through their schedule, and I see games where they're at home against a team that's very good. So like the Colts, who I like a lot this year. I think the Colts and Broncos are comparable. I think they're very similar strengths.
I'd say the Colts are slightly better.
The Colts might be slightly better, but this year's game is in Denver. And when I look at a game, I'm like, you know what? I'll give it to Denver. They have the edge. They're at home. And when I just keep looking through their schedule, Raiders at home, I give them a slight edge because they're at home. Chiefs at home, I think they could win. Cardinals at home, I give them the edge. And I was just going through giving them win after win after win. I'm not very high on this Denver team. Of the 4 teams in this division, I actually think they're the worst.
Yeah.
However, I don't think they're going to finish last because that home field advantage, because their schedule. I have the Denver Broncos going over the 9.5 and getting 10 wins and getting in the playoffs. I have all teams in this division doing well, and I do think the Chiefs are better than the Broncos, and I think the Raiders are better than the Broncos, but just something about playing in Mile High, having Russell Wilson, everything this year, I don't think they'll win a playoff game, but I think their record is, I think they'll get double-digit wins.
I personally have them winning 9 wins, which would be the under. Although I am generous like you, I'm not as generous. I see one of those home games potentially falling out of their control, but obviously an NFL season, it's crazy. Who knows what's going to happen? But with that being said, I think 9.5 is a little steep for them just because I haven't seen enough, just obviously because everything's kind of brand new coming into this year. But they're definitely a team to look out for.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see them getting 3 wins in the division. I think splitting that. And then I think Seattle and Houston the first 2 weeks. And then, who knows? I'm not confident. If I didn't look at their schedule, I would have said 8 wins. But after looking at it, I'm going with 10. Let's move on to the Chargers. They were a hot team last year, missed the playoffs barely. And a lot of people are liking them this year. They're the favorites. The Chiefs are the favorites to win this division, but they have the same over-under at 10. Brandon, I know your expectations are high for them, but first, what do you think the general expectation is? Not just yours, but what do you think they should do?
I think overall, the guy who has the most eyes on him, and I could be completely wrong here, is Justin Herbert.
Well, yeah.
He's entering a major year of his career. He has always been great, but now the narrative's changed. Now it's like the new kid on the block, and he's seen as the next next rising star at the quarterback position. I think he's going to have a huge year. I think overall the standard's pretty high for the Chargers. They had an amazing offseason. I genuinely mean it, an amazing offseason.
The best one in the NFL by far.
Best in the NFL. And they were a good team that only got better. Their weapons are great, offensively and defensively. Yeah. I think the sky's the limit for this team. I think people are aware of it.
Yeah, they're all around good everywhere. They filled any holes they had. Justin Herbert is, I think, is the second favorite for MVP. So everything's coming together there. First off, I don't think anyone needs me to go through what they have on offense, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Sure.
Austin Eckler's top 5 running back in the league, top 10 RB in the league, I'd say. I didn't like that ESPN left him off their top 10 list. Keenan Allen is the ultimate consistent receiver year in, year out, just like Mike Evans. And Mike Williams is one of the best. We talked about this nonstop last year. Yeah. He has the ultimate build of a receiver. Super fast and super big, and he's good. And Josh Palmer's a lot of people's breakout, so all the weapons are there. The O-line's what I want to get
Phenomenal.
to. Corey Linsley, I think, is my favorite O-lineman in the league, just pure skill-wise. He's the best center, and I truly think center is the most important position on the offensive line. That's where the fumbles can happen, and obviously blocking is what the offensive line is meant for. But if you're not fumbling the ball at all, that's a good thing, and he's been the top on the NFL, top 100, the top center 2 years in a row. On top of it, Rashawn Slater was a top 5 O-line last year as a rookie, and Zion Johnson, I think, was a good pick this year. So everything on the offense seems like it should fit. Nothing on that offense screams weakness to me. And in a division with the Chiefs and the Raiders, who now have Renfro, Adams, and Waller, I put the Chargers the best offense in this division.
They're comparable for sure. I think that. Can I talk about the defense real quick? The defense is as if like the offense couldn't beat like a team couldn't one up them. The defense, I could almost argue, is even better. They got Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. Both
best linebacker duo in the league.
Yeah, both absolute studs. I think Joey Bosa is an edge rusher, actually. But yeah, I'd say one of the best pass.
Well, he's listed as a will linebacker, I think, normally, but he does end up on the edge a lot.
Yeah, and then they gave a ton of money to Derwin James, just actually pretty recently, a few days ago. He got a very big contract.
Huge. $97 million, I think.
Yeah, I think he'll have a huge year as well. And they went out and signed the interception leader over the past, I think, 3 or 4 years in J.C. Jackson from New England. That was a huge pickup as well. This is a team that's absolutely loaded on both sides of the ball. And like I said earlier, sky's the limit for them.
I mean, to look at Joey Bosa as a top 5 defensive player is not crazy.
Yeah.
To see Khalil Mack as a guy who was once the best defensive player in the league. To look at J.C. Jackson, who's been the best cornerback in the league for the past couple years. And opposite him is Asante Samuel as a corner with Derwin James as a safety.
Asante Samuel.
And I think Kenneth Murray was a good pick out of Oklahoma, I think 2 years ago. So everything on the Chargers seems like it should fit. And yet, I don't know if I'm so confident everything's going to go right. I think something will happen there. There's a lot in the air. It's football. Something always goes wrong. Teams we expect to be great aren't always great. I do have them going over the 10. I think they're going to get 11 wins, and I have them win this division. And I think the interesting thing about this division is I don't have anyone going over 11 wins because I think just they're going to kill each other all season long. And I think injuries are really going to be something that defines this division. You can't afford to have a big injury here. No. So I really think the Chargers will win it with 11 wins, and the other 3 teams are going to be above 9. So that is where it comes in crazy because in the best division of football, you might think a team they would have the best team in football, but I think they're going to have a 4 seed. They're going to have the 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah. I agree. I have them in the over. I think that, like you said, injuries are a huge just factor in the division as a whole, but the Chargers, if they stay healthy, are truly a dangerous team in this division for sure. Yeah. Let's move on to some people's least favorite team in the division. I know it's not for me. Might not be for you. Let's talk about the Raiders. Do you want to just dive right in?
Yeah, I'll dive right in. So the big story of the offseason is their acquisitions. And by the way, it's kind of funny with the last 2 teams, we didn't mention any weaknesses, and this is one where there are weaknesses. They picked up Devontae Adams in the offseason. They still have Renfrow and Waller, as I mentioned. So I would argue, I'm just going to start with this, not even expectations. I think the Raiders, this is my hot take, have the best weapons in this division.
Yeah, and best receiver corps, at least.
It's because they have the 4th best tight end in football. Mm-hmm. They have what you thought the best receiver in football. I don't think he is. And Hunter Renfrow was their star last year. So just to have all of that, I mean, that's probably the reason you had Derek Carr leading the league in passing. Derek Carr is solid, so everything looks good there. And I was tempted to give them the division win. A few weeks ago, I was really high on them. Like, it's really a roller coaster ride for me, but when I look at those guys, and they also have Josh Jacobs, outside of them, they have the weakest everything else in the division.
It's a fair take.
So I think their expectations are unreasonably high.
Mm-hmm. That's completely fair. I think that their over-under being 8.5 is fair. I personally have them hitting their over. But yeah, some weaknesses that they have that Spencer was addressing kind of. O-line's kind of poor overall. They have some pieces, not a lot going though. Their defense is actually, I'd say their pass rush is underrated, and Max Crosby and Chandler Jones.
That's going to be 2 good guys on that.
Both of which are very good, coming from opposite sides.
And I do like their defensive. Right. I do like their defensive scheme, and I do like Josh McDowell's. I like that they run the 4-3 base with the 2 guys on the edge. Yep. That should work out well. And then also the secondary. I'll just get to what you were about to say. Jonathan Abrams coming off injury. Rocky Sin, they got in a trade from the Colts. Yep. Nothing there is going their way.
Yeah, no. It's a below average secondary for sure. But with that being said, there's just so much firepower in that offense that I'm pushing them to 9 wins this year for sure.
You know, I also have the over. I was thinking about going with 10. I'm still sticking with 9. And the thing with the Raiders, like, when I'm comparing them to a team like the Chiefs, so I don't love this year, I'm saying I think their offense can be better than the Chiefs. But the Chiefs have, ranked by ESPN, so I'm not just pulling this out of nowhere, the best offensive line in the league. Yeah. On top of it, their defense is their weakness, but I think I'd take the Chiefs' defense over the Raiders. So now I'm looking at the battle for last place in the division, where I was thinking Broncos at first, but I told you about their schedule, and I was thinking Chiefs for the longest time. That was going to be my big hot take of the season. But looking at the Raiders, it's also Adams' first year, so who knows. They've got to be my last place in the division. I have them missing out with 9 wins. And although their expectations are high, and just the name value of Adams, Jacobs, Renfrow, Carr made me have them winning the division for a point. Literally, in my head, the last 2 months, I've had every single one of these teams win the division at one point. Mm-hmm. I can't trust their defense, especially in this division. They're going to get cooked.
There's a lot in the air, yeah, for sure. And this is a high-powered offensive division, so there's a lot for them. Like, there's a lot that they're going to need to address if they want to win this division.
Yeah, but I do love Josh McDaniels there. I do love their offense. I think Derek Carr has a chance to lead the league in passing while finishing last in this division. So I think that was a really good hot take by you, and it's realistic. Mm-hmm. I feel like we just flew by the Raiders, but honestly, I just want to get to the Chiefs so bad. The Chiefs, for the longest times I just said, were my expectation to be last in the division. When I saw this 10.5, immediately I was like, under.
Yep.
And I've started to rethink that a bit, but their expectations, do you think they're too high by the media and the odds makers here?
I think just being who Patrick Mahomes is, they're going to have a high expectation regardless. I do think, with that being said, some people are undervaluing the loss that Tyreek Hill was to them. Tyreek Hill, you said it a million times, and I've said it too. Tyreek Hill added a layer to that offense that made them perform at the level we've never seen before.
It made them maybe the greatest offense of all time for a year or two. I mean, in Mahomes' up-and-coming year, and all I could think about from that year is that Rams-Chiefs Monday night game. That was like
45-42.
It was even higher scoring. I think they were in the 50s. But what makes that offense so special is Patrick Mahomes, in my eyes, is the greatest talent in NFL history.
Yep.
Travis Kelce, in my eyes, is a top 5 tight end in NFL history.
Probably top 3, honestly.
In NFL history. That's not just now.
Yeah.
They have 2 guys who I think might be the most talented at their position in the history of this league.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill, there's been no one else like him in the history of the league. I'm not going to say he's in the conversation. He's not a lock for a Hall of Famer even yet. But there's no one else who does what he does. His speed, his versatility, everything there.
Yep.
That is the layer. They needed all 3 to succeed.
Yeah.
And losing Hill is a big deal.
For sure.
But they still have Mahomes and Kelce are the guys, and it's a shame. And when they were in that Super Bowl, when they were at their peak, they didn't have the O-line. Now they do. And honestly, I think they should have paid Hill. I don't know if they had the money to, but if you could just imagine having the number 1 O-line in the league, the number 1 quarterback in the league, the number 1 tight end in the league, and the number 1 receiver in the league, what more could you want?
The best coach in the league.
That gives you the best offense of all time. So that was a huge loss for the Chiefs, and I think it takes their offense down a rung. It is why they have now not the best weapons in their division, not the best offense in their division. That's just between 4 teams alone.
Yep.
So I think that was a big loss for the Chiefs, but I still trust Mahomes to have a good Pro Bowl year. He's not in the MVP conversation. Could surprise people, but he hasn't even entered my mind in the MVP conversation.
Yeah, it is honestly crazy to think that he's just so regarded. By everyone, he's just regarded as probably the best talent in the NFL right now. Yet he's in no one's MVP conversation. And it's not necessarily voter fatigue either. It's just the fact that
I think people think he's going to take a step back this year without Hill. But it's going to be interesting to see how the offense does without him. Because who knows? It could be a seamless transition. I still don't hate their receivers, although I don't like Juju very much. And Mecole Hardman got hurt a few days ago. We'll update. I haven't gotten an update on that status. And I don't know how much I love Sky Moore as a rookie.
Yeah.
And MVS, who the hell knows?
Yeah.
So that's really sketchy. But they have opportunity there, and this a big prove-it year for Mahomes' his legacy, I think.
I also think losing Tyrann Mathieu in the offseason was an underrated loss. I think that...
Can we get to their whole defense in a second? First, I want to say their RB core. Edwards-Helaire sucks. He's done. They should have taken Jonathan Taylor. Jerick McKinnon did perform well for them last year. I don't know how much I trust Isaiah Pacheco, I don't know how to even pronounce his name. A lot of people have been talking about him for a late-round fantasy guy. He's been taking some first-team reps. Ronald Jones is kind of washed. I don't trust their RBs either, but that's never been an issue. But maybe they'll need the RB game more. So at least they have that good O-line. So now we can talk about the defense. I agree. Tyrann Mathieu, huge loss. They already had a sketchy defense. That's the reason I had them last place for so long was because no defense and sketchy receivers in an RB core. But I think the defense will take a step up this year, and I think this defense will for sure be better than the Raiders.
As I said, that was a big loss. However, they do still have some talent on the defensive side of the ball. Chris Jones is one of the better just defensive players in the NFL, period. Yeah. He's one of the better edge rushers as well. I think that the Chiefs' floor is relatively
I think it's low.
I think it's relatively high in the grand scheme of things. However, for the Chiefs, this is probably the lowest their floor has been in the Mahomes.
So I think there's a world in which Patrick Mahomes is not the normal Patrick Mahomes without Tyreek Hill, and their offense is good but not great, and their defense falls apart. I think there's a world where they get 7 wins. Yeah. I do think that can happen. I think there's also a world where they win this division. I'm going with the middle area. I think they're going to get 10 wins. I'm definitely going under. But about their defense, I think L'Jarius Sneed as a corner is one of the most underrated players in the NFL, and they're pairing him with Trent McDuffie, their first-round pick this year. So that was a good pickup, a guy they got because of the Tyreek Hill trade. Yep. In addition, Justin Reed, everyone likes him because he kicks field goals now, and that's their safety. And their linebackers, like Nick Bolton, can take a step up this year. Willie Gay's not bad by any means. And as you said, Chris Jones is great. Frank Clark, if he could stay on the field. So their defense isn't bad. I think it's below average. But looking in the grand scheme of this division, it's better than the Raiders, and it can get if it could get them to a level where they could win shootouts again. That's the thing with the Chiefs. Their defense has never been an issue because they could always win shootouts. But without Tyreek Hill, look at the Bills game. They couldn't have won that game without Tyreek Hill, and that was a shootout. Yep. So their defense is going to have to get to the point where it doesn't force their offense to score 40 points a game. Sure. And I don't think they get to that point this year, and that's why I think the Chiefs struggle. And looking at last year, they were awful.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. In the regular season, they were awful by
For the
Chiefs
first,
standards.
5 weeks,
And
people swore that they weren't the same team.
Oh yeah, and
they really weren't.
for their
honestly.
offense, it took a step back losing Tyreek Hill. I love that they picked up Joe Thuney and Orlando Brown, and I love Creed Humphrey. I think he's going to take Corey Linsley's spot as the best center in the NFL next year.
If he hasn't already.
But if he hasn't already, but it's still it's a weaker offense just because of that. So their defense is going to have to step up. As I said, I have them winning 10 games. I have them making the playoffs. I have them losing in the first round.
Yeah, I have 10 as well. I think that with that being said, though, I wouldn't immediately write them off for the playoffs because Mahomes has been known to do some things that don't necessarily make sense to the average human being.
I will say this right now. I think there's a 40% chance they miss the playoffs. And I only give them a 30% chance in advancing in the playoffs. So I think there's a higher chance they miss than win a playoff game.
Yeah, they're definitely going to just be like one of the main teams we're hearing about all season long, though.
Yeah, and so every team in this division just has tons of storylines.
Yep.
I think that's all we could say. So, Brandon, just one quick review. What is your ranking of teams in this division? This is the golden question whenever I see people on the street. And I could give first if you want some time.
If you want to go first, go ahead.
Off the top of my head, without my rankings, I think Chargers... I don't know. Like, I was thinking the Raiders 2, but after I just gave that whole speech about them being weak, go Chiefs 2, Raiders 3, Broncos 4. Record-wise, I have Chargers 1, Broncos 2, Chiefs 3, Raiders 4. So I have the Broncos, worst team in this division, finishing second in it because I think they have that stability on both sides of the ball and they have that home field. I think that's the best home field advantage in football. So for those two reasons, I like them. And it's also better than risking who the hell knows what the Chiefs or Raiders are going to do. But purely power rankings, I think the Raiders could make an argument for 2. Like, it's just so insane. I've been thinking for days about this prediction. Record-wise, Chargers definitely 11 wins. Broncos 10, Chiefs 10, Raiders 9. Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders, all I think are going to get either 9 or 10 wins. I think that's probably plus 500 odds or something, but 9 or 10 wins for all 3 of those teams.
Yeah, so my power rankings, probably Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos, like you said. My records, Chargers are going to have the best record with 11, then probably Chiefs 10. And then I'd say Raiders 9, Broncos 8. So I'm a little worried about the Broncos personally. Broncos
and
9 wins.
By the way, that gives a spot for maybe a team like the Dolphins or the Steelers sneak in. And all of a sudden, in the last few days, I've talked myself into liking the Steelers a lot. So I don't know what's going on there, but we still have some NFL stuff to come before the season. Don't you worry, just because these 8 days are over. It's been really fun, guys. Let us know what you thought. And in this, our one last NFL episode, other than the fantasy one, we're just going to be giving our full playoff brackets, who we have win the Super Bowl, and some awards. We've kind of tried to stay away from MVP, and who knows, maybe I will have Mahomes win MVP this year.
Yeah, who knows. Thank you so much for tuning in over the past 8 days. We've loved it. Let us know if you want us to do similar series like this. We know we've enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks.